Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with hope, moral lessons, and love are told. If you enjoy stories that touch your heart and inspire your soul, please make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this. I grew up in the bustling city of Lagos, where every day was a battle to survive. My name is Charlotte, and I was 12 years old when I learned that life could be both cruel and strangely beautiful. I lived with my mother, Margaret, in a single, crumbling room at the edge of the city. She had once been a vibrant woman with dreams of her own, but mental illness had slowly stolen her light, leaving her drifting in a world only she could see. Some days she recognized me and held me close. Other days, she looked at me with suspicion, as if I were a stranger in her life. We had no steady income. Our meals depended on what we could get from kind neighbors, or what I could earn helping people carry baskets at the local market. Most of the time, it wasn't enough. Hunger was an old friend, and so were the whispers of people calling me the mad woman's daughter. I used to shrink under those words, wishing I could melt into the ground. But deep inside, I held on to a dream. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to learn, to escape the cycle of poverty and hopelessness that had chained us for so long. The only person who treated me with consistent kindness was Auntie Linda, a cheerful food vendor who sold steaming plates of jollof rice by the roadside. Every now and then, she would hand me a plate and say, "Charlotte, you can't learn on an empty stomach." Her faith in me was a small light in my otherwise dim world. When she learned that I had never attended proper school, she shook her head and said, "You're too smart to waste away here." She began paying my fees at a small community school, and for a while, I felt as though the universe had finally opened its arms to me. But life has a way of snatching joy before you can fully hold it. One afternoon, Auntie Linda called me over after I had helped her pack up her stall. "I have to leave for the UK," she said softly. "Family matters. I don't know when I'll be back. I'm so sorry, Charlotte, but I can't keep paying your school fees." I tried to be brave, but my chest felt like it was caving in. School had been my one escape, and now it was slipping through my fingers. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself wandering the streets aimlessly, unable to bear the thought of returning to the endless, empty hours of doing nothing. One morning, while walking past Queen's Crest Academy, a prestigious private school surrounded by tall gates and manicured gardens, I heard the muffled sound of a teacher's voice drifting through an open, cracked window. I stopped in my tracks. The words pulled me in like a magnet. Without thinking, I crept closer, pressing my ear to the gap. I listened to lessons about history, science, and literature, my mind drinking it all in like rain after a drought. That became my secret. Every day, I would stand by that window, careful to remain unseen. I took mental notes, repeated the words to myself, and imagined I was one of the students inside. It was on one of those days that I first saw her, Emily Hamilton. She was sitting near the back of the classroom, her chin resting in her hands, staring at her notebook in frustration. The teacher was explaining something about fractions, but Emily's eyes were clouded with confusion. Later, during lunch break, I was still lingering near the school grounds when I noticed Emily wandering away from the noisy cafeteria, clutching her lunch bag. She settled under the wide shade of a mango tree, clearly wanting to be alone. I don't know what possessed me, but I stepped out from my hiding spot and walked toward her. She looked startled at first. "Hi," I said, trying to sound confident. Her eyes flicked over my worn clothes, but her expression softened. "Hi. I was listening to your class earlier," I admitted, my cheeks warming. "You seem stuck on the maths problem. I could explain it if you like." She raised an eyebrow, half amused, half curious. "You understand it?" I nodded and crouched beside her, using a stick to draw in the dirt. I explained the fractions in simple steps, the way I had understood them from the teacher's lesson. Slowly, her eyes lit up. "Oh, that makes sense now." From that day on, Emily and I began meeting under the mango tree during lunch breaks. She would bring her lunch and her homework, and I would guide her through the lessons she struggled with. In return, she would share part of her sandwich or biscuits with me. We laughed, we talked, and for the first time, I felt what it was like to have a friend who saw me for who I was, not just the daughter of a woman the world had discarded. Emily told me about her life, about her father Richard Hamilton, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. She lived in a mansion with marble floors and chandeliers, but her voice carried a hint of loneliness when she spoke. "Everyone sees me as the billionaire's daughter," she said once, "but no one really knows me." I understood that loneliness more than I could explain. Beneath our differences in background, there was something that made us alike, two girls searching for connection, for someone who truly understood. But deep inside, I knew our little arrangement couldn't last forever. Sooner or later, someone would notice. And when they did, I had no idea what would happen to me. Our meetings under the mango tree became the highlight of my days. I'd wake up early, help my mother wash her face and coax her to eat something, then hurry to the edge of Queen's Crest Academy. Emily would always be waiting with her lunch and a small smile, eager to dive into her books. We developed a rhythm. She'd hand me her assignments. I'd explain the concepts she struggled with, and she'd try them herself until she got it right. Some days we'd get distracted, telling stories or laughing over something silly, but even then, there was always a page of maths or an English essay between us. I taught her in ways that made sense to me, breaking down complicated lessons into tiny, manageable pieces. She said her teachers were surprised at how quickly she was improving, but she never told them the truth. She was protecting me, and I didn't need to ask why. One Friday afternoon, as we packed up after another study session, Emily asked me a question I wasn't expecting. "Charlotte, why aren't you in school? You're smarter than half the people in my class." The words caught in my throat. I looked away, watching the sunlight filter through the mango leaves. I was in school, but the person paying my fees had to leave the country. My mother. She's sick, and we don't have any money. Emily's eyes softened. "Sick? Like, she forgets things," I interrupted quickly. "Sometimes she doesn't know who I am. It's hard." She didn't push further. Instead, she reached into her lunch bag and handed me the last slice of her bread. "Then I guess I'll just have to keep learning from you," she said with a small smile. We continued our secret lessons for weeks, and Emily's grades kept climbing. She began to carry herself differently, more confident, more willing to speak up in class. I felt proud, but also cautious. The more her teachers noticed her improvement, the more likely it was that someone would start asking questions. That day came sooner than I imagined. It was a Tuesday, and Emily had begged me to help her revise for a surprise test. We were deep into a tricky geometry problem when a shadow fell over us. I looked up and froze. A tall man in an immaculate suit stood there, his presence so commanding that it made the air feel heavy. His dark eyes swept over me, lingering on my worn clothes, my dusty shoes, and finally settling on my face. "Emily," he said, his voice low and firm, "who is this?" Emily scrambled to her feet. "Dad, this is Charlotte. She's a friend." "Friend?" His tone carried a mix of disbelief and disapproval. "She doesn't look like she attends this school." I stood slowly, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear. "I don't, sir. I was just—" "She was helping me," Emily interrupted, her chin lifting in defiance. "She's the reason I've been doing better in class." Richard Hamilton's gaze shifted between us. "Helping you? How exactly?" I swallowed hard. "I listened to the lessons from outside. I understand the work, so I've been explaining it to her." For a moment, he said nothing. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Then he spoke, his voice measured. "Emily, go back to class. I need to speak with Charlotte." Emily hesitated. "Please don't be mad at her." "Emily," he said sharply, and she reluctantly walked away, glancing back at me with worried eyes. I stood there, clutching my hands together, waiting for the scolding I was sure would come. Instead, Richard studied me in a way that made me feel like he was reading every chapter of my life. "You've been teaching my daughter? Without pay? Without being asked?" "Yes, sir," I said quietly. She just needed a bit of help." His jaw tightened, and I couldn't tell if it was from irritation or something else. "Do you know how dangerous it is for a young girl to hang around a school she doesn't attend? People talk. Guards could have thrown you out." "I know," I admitted. "But I just wanted to learn. And when I saw she was struggling, I thought maybe I could help." For a moment, I thought I saw something shift in his eyes, an understanding I didn't expect. But his expression was unreadable. "Where do you live, Charlotte?" I hesitated. Near Makoko, sir. He exhaled slowly, as if weighing something in his mind. Go home. I'll speak to you again soon. I walked away that day with my heart in my throat. Emily messaged me through a scrap of paper the next day, slipped through the fence. What did he say? I just wrote back, I don't know yet. But something in me knew that the meeting had set events in motion that I couldn't predict. That Saturday, there was a knock at our door. I opened it to find Richard Hamilton standing there, his suit replaced by a casual shirt, but his presence no less overwhelming. He glanced inside at my mother, who was sitting on the floor humming to herself, clutching an old piece of cloth. I wanted to see for myself, he said simply. Emily told me everything. I didn't know what everything meant, but the way he looked at me calmly, deliberately made me believe my life was about to change in ways I couldn't yet understand. Richard Hamilton's presence in our small home felt surreal, like a powerful wave crashing into the quiet shore of my life. He didn't come with judgment or harsh words, but with a promise that seemed almost too good to be true. Charlotte, he said softly, your mother needs proper care, and you deserve a chance to thrive. His eyes, usually so sharp and commanding in the boardroom, now held warmth and sincerity. The next few days passed in a whirlwind. Richard arranged for my mother to receive treatment at a psychiatric clinic renowned for its compassionate care. For the first time in years, I saw a spark of recognition in my mother's eyes, a moment where the fog of her illness lifted, if only briefly. It was like watching a dying star flicker back to life. Meanwhile, I was enrolled officially at Queen's Crest Academy. The gates that once seemed impenetrable were now open to me. The classrooms that had been a distant dream became my daily reality. I moved into a small guest room in Richard's mansion, where the polished floors and sparkling chandeliers no longer intimidated me, but inspired me. Emily welcomed me into her world fully, not just as a friend, but as a sister. Our bond grew stronger, built on trust, shared secrets, and countless afternoons spent studying beneath that familiar mango tree, now within the school's lush grounds. I wasn't just the poor girl anymore. I was Charlotte, the student, the friend, the daughter of a man who believed in me. Richard didn't just provide financial support, he provided guidance. Your intelligence and heart are rare, Charlotte, he told me once, as we walked through the sprawling gardens. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Those words became a mantra I held onto tightly. But with new beginnings came challenges. Some students whispered behind my back, calling me the charity case or the rich girl's tutor. At first, their words stung like cold rain, but I reminded myself why I was there: to learn, to grow, to build a future. I chose to rise above the noise, proving every day that I belonged. School wasn't just about books anymore. It was about reclaiming my identity. I joined the debate team, challenged myself in science fairs, and even started writing articles for the school magazine. Each achievement was a brick in the foundation of my new life. Emily and I celebrated our successes together, but we also comforted each other through hard times. I saw her struggle with the pressures of being a billionaire's daughter, constantly judged for things beyond her control. In her, I found a fierce loyalty and a friendship that made the loneliness of my past fade. As months turned into years, my mother's health improved steadily. Visits to the clinic became less frequent, and she began to smile again, recognizing me without confusion. Seeing her regain her strength was the greatest victory of all. Richard's generosity extended beyond my family. He encouraged me to mentor other children who faced similar hardships, creating scholarships and programs to give them a chance at education. It was a way to pay forward the kindness that had changed my life. One evening, as I sat in the grand living room reflecting on how far I had come, Richard joined me with a thoughtful expression. Charlotte, he said, your story is one of resilience and hope. It reminds us all that where we start doesn't define where we end. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The homeless girl who once listened through a cracked window had become a symbol of possibility, a living testament that kindness, opportunity, and belief can rewrite the story of a life. And so, I share this story with you not just to tell you about my journey, but to remind you that no matter how difficult life may seem, there is always a path forward. Keep holding on to your dreams. Never stop believing in yourself. Because sometimes, help comes from the most unexpected places, and when it does, it can change everything. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more stories that inspire and uplift. Comment below what you learned or how this story made you feel. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.